We have on the show today Mr. Thomas Varghese. Mr. Thomas Varghese is the business head of domestic textiles, overseas spinning and acrylic fiber business of the Aditya Birla Group textile businesses, overseeing 3 domestic and 7 overseas companies. Mr. Varghese has been with the Aditya Birla Group for the last 22 plus years. As part of your working life, you have traversed the globe. For the benefit of the participants on the show, request you to please trace your footprints around the world.
Thank you, Premraj, and thank you, Bloom, for having me on this call. I think I'm at the, like they say, the fag end of my career. So it's a career which is almost lasted 39 years and with a few more years to go. I actually started my intense travel around 1990 and 1991 when I was with a company called Indian Organic Chemicals Limited. That's when I started my international travel. The travel took me to many parts of the world, and we were the first in many respects in the polyester industry. It was quite interesting to meet stakeholders and value chain players across the world. Starting with Europe, which was a big market for me at that time, and also traversing the US and some parts of Asia. Those 7-8 years of travel really helped open my eyes to what the world offers. So I got to know Europe very well. I got to know parts of Asia well. And as I moved into this role, which I currently am in my 9th year of, I have a multicultural, multi-geographical workforce. I operate out of 7 countries. I have a workforce of more than 14,000 people. These 7 countries are Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines, Germany, Slovakia, India, Spain, and we have multiple interests. I run 3 businesses for the group today. But to tell you about my learnings on the global footprint, I started traveling to China in 1992. That is the first trip I made. And over the years, I almost traveled to China every year for business and for some exhibitions. The first time I landed in China, I could see the green beret uniform Chinese soldier carrying a Sten gun, look quite archaic, but that is the vision I have of China in 1992. Every year I traveled to China was an eye-opener for me. The airports became bigger and bigger. The infrastructure improved with every passing year of my visit. And I have always been a great China fan ever since I saw this transformation in front of my eyes. And over the years, of course, we all know what China achieved in the 90s and the 2000s, early 2000s. These visits to China helped me in doing the first Chinese acquisition for the group of a company producing viscose staple fiber. In 2005, Mr. Birla gave me this job because we had been working for about 4-5 years. And every time we came to closing a deal or even did a deal, the deal never went through because the Chinese are very difficult to predict till the deal was done. I was successful after about 8-10 months of search around entire China, which took me to practically the most significant provinces of China and opened my eyes to the Chinese hinterland. And it was not only about Shanghai or Beijing or Qingdao, it was or Guangzhou. It was about looking at various provinces of China, including going up to Mongolia on several occasions. And I was successful in closing the deal. And in 2006, we acquired the first Chinese company. So that was the beginning of my international exposure.
Taking it forward, in the backdrop of the pandemic, the rules of employee engagement have changed dramatically. There is uncertainty, anxiety, and all-round fear. According to you, what can or what could a leader do to salvage the situation?
I think the social contract between the employer and the employee have changed. The ways of working has changed. The way in which the whole world is working today, more or less remotely, has changed the culture of organizations. We cannot expect the culture of the organization that existed pre-COVID to continue as it was. The culture where people are working from homes, where there is greater deployment of technology, where remote working has become a way of life, where decision making is taken in a more decentralized manner, have all changed the complete hues of employee engagement. In fact, I would say that what this really entails is we are very clearly in a VUCA world. And in a VUCA world, the employee, irrespective of all that he sees around him, is anxious. Many of them go into depression. Many of them are concerned about their jobs, particularly as many companies who do not have the vision, taking short-term decisions to cut costs, maybe to manage their liquidity and solvency. I think we have dealt with this in a very wonderful way. I think from the day the lockdowns were announced in India, and the lockdown in different parts of the world came at different points in time. And since I manage a global operation, my issues have always to do with the entire global business context that I operate. We went into, very interestingly, we created a small core group of CXOs, and we started having a management meeting every day. This may have looked a little painful to people in the beginning, but all the CEOs and CXOs were part of this call every day. It was a short call, not more than 30, 45 minutes. But this gave a sense of reassurance to people that we were connected, number one. Number two, the IT team worked round the clock to enable a remote working by the entire organization, not just in India, but also globally. This would have been thought impossible, if not completely not possible to do in the years ahead. But it was fantastic to see how our employees also rose to the occasion, and with connectivity remotely, we were able to get connected on a regular basis. We tried to create a sense of oneness for the entire business, more than we had been able to do even in the physical world. That because every business of the group was represented at these calls, and every business was represented in even the town halls that we were doing, we started having a feeling of more one ABG Textiles that we never had before. In addition to communication, and I would say that communication is absolutely the key in a pandemic of this kind, which struck the whole world and brought it to its knees. We were able to communicate with our teams. So we had business town halls, we had all business town halls, we had ExCom meetings continuously with our businesses, where the agenda was not only about the business continuity. Business continuity, of course, was the foremost thing in our minds, and how to get back to normal after closure of many plants around the world for different points in time and for different periods of time. The most important thing was to give people a sense that there is a strong backing of the Aditya Birla Group to every business, irrespective of the conditions that are prevailing in different countries. So communication became key. And we started a lot of R&R. Now, I had been struggling with R&Rs, that's reward and recognition, even in the physical world. I was not able to get my HR teams to really move. And it was amazing how they put together rewards and recognition program for people who were walking the extra mile, who were going beyond the call of duty. Maybe it could be to help people during COVID times, maybe to help their fellow colleagues, maybe to help families of their colleagues, and to do impossible things. Because, during the pandemic, when markets were closed, our retail stores were closed, it was very difficult to get off the ground. And I think these rewards and recognition gave another pillar of strength to the people. Thirdly, in all our people policies, as a group, we ensured that we did not get into any short-term correction or letting go of people. We did take some actions to reduce our costs, but it was never to let go of people indiscriminately. And therefore, and to communicate this, that we would not do it irrespective of not even working for months together and keeping our plants closed. I think all these steps gave a sense of strength, a sense of confidence, and a sense of knowing that there is somebody who cares about them and their well-being. And it was not just that they were left to fend for themselves. And of course, the pandemic was hard on different people. We lost some colleagues. It was a sad moment, but as a team, we tried to do everything for the persons who were affected and their families. And I'm really delighted that, as a corollary to the second wave, we've come out with certain policies which are completely COVID-based policies for our employees, including for those people who lost their lives and who lost family members. And I really have to salute Mr. Birla for his vision and his compassion and his humanity. That what we have come out with has given so much confidence to the people in Aditya Birla Group that they know that if they are sick or if their family is sick in any part of the world, there will be support coming by not just code reds, but by hospital beds arrangements being tied up, oxygen concentrators being made arranged, oxygen cylinders being kept in plants and in offices, ensuring that medicines are arranged with whatever networking the group has to ensure that health insurance for COVID victims have been put in place. Health insurance schemes have been modified, fortunately, because we have Aditya Birla Insurance, which covers our insurance, to see that there are no caps on insurance costs, because many people have spent a lot more money than the insurance premiums really, provide for. So all these things have really helped considerably in managing the anxiety level, manage the nervousness that employees have. And I think we are really delighted that after a poor beginning, we ended the year quite well. And given the circumstances of the COVID and employee morale. And just to give you an instance, anecdotal incidents, we measure, we do these organizational health surveys. So we were doing it with Gallup for the last more than 10, 12 years. And we did one a couple of years ago, and we keep doing a dipstick. So we do the OHS every 2 years, and in every year we do a dipstick. We did a dipstick of our domestic textile business, 3 units spread across the country. And we were amazed to see that the VIBE score, we call it VIBES, the OHS, the VIBE score had hit an all-time high. This was really very surprising to most of our people and also people in the group, because it is a very unlikely period to have VIBE scores going up dramatically in a business which never had great VIBE scores. And I think in a sense, it reflected really all the employee engagement initiatives we as a group had taken and rolled out. And it was very clear that it was not just implemented in letter, but it was also implemented in spirit. And therefore, it was felt by every employee. So I think that gives a strong sense of, purpose and a strong sense of commitment.
You said you have seen the developments of infrastructure in China. Please share your views on the same in India, where India could be in the next 20 years, and what India should do or focus to reach that number one spot in the world. Thank you.
Mr. Jagannathan, you asked a question on which a lot of people have a lot of, different views. I remember many times listening to headline news of some politician or the other saying that we will make Mumbai into Shanghai or Qingdao, whatever. Frankly, nobody really understands the effort the Chinese have done. I remember when I was doing my search for my partner for joint venture or for acquisition, everyone told me, China is only Shanghai, Beijing, Qingdao, and Guangzhou. Every other part of China is backward. But believe me, as I traveled through China, the kind of infrastructure I saw, you will not believe that most of China's hinterland is connected by concrete roads. That is why it explains why the Chinese cement companies are the largest in the world, because that's the amount of concrete they consume. The roads are fabulous. The airports, even the smallest airport is bigger than the biggest airports we have. And this I'm talking about knowledge of 6, 7, 8 years ago, because in the last couple of years, I've not been traveling as often to China as I normally was. So I think, frankly, given the kind of political environment, given the kind of corruption, given the kind of lack of priority, it is very difficult for India to emulate China. And, fortunately, the late Prime Minister, Mr. Vajpayee, tried to do something on the roads, but, again, it went into cold freeze. And I think, to me, I personally believe that a country is built with advanced investment in infrastructure. And, it's like putting the horse before the cart, it's this whole dilemma that do we have the money to invest in this, and are we doubtful about the investment? To me, infrastructure is an economic multiplier like no other.
Yes.
I think Indian governments, successive Indian governments, have not invested in infrastructure as they ought to have. And when I say infrastructure, I mean roads to begin with, ports, trains, airports, water. These are the kind of investment that Indian government needs to do in terms of infrastructure. And frankly, people have different views, but every time I went to China, I saw a new China. And every time I come back to Bombay, I see the same Bombay for the last 30 years. And I don't think we will ever catch up with them. I don't even think we should even think that we will do. We'll never catch up.